going on, everybody? Welcome to my first poker vlog. My name is Gil, I'm 18, and I play poker. That's why you're here, I play poker. I currently live in Los Angeles, California, and there's not too many places that allow players to play 18. But you know where they do allow players 18 and over? Dallas, Texas. So I decided to move out to Dallas for 3 weeks just to play poker. I don't really have too many goals for this trip. I just wanted to see how I would do putting in 50 hours a week, as if I was going to play professionally, and I wanted to make a bunch of videos documenting the entire journey, so let's begin. I flew into Dallas on Monday, November 29th, but didn't jump into the action until the next day. I went to Texas Card House to play a couple of tournaments. I mostly play tournaments, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a large amount of cash game sessions this trip. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me film any of the tournaments at Texas Card House, but I ended up final tabling both of the tournaments that I played. The first one was decently small. I only profited about $200, but the second one was a $300 bounty tournament, which we placed third in for a profit of $2,380. So not too bad of a way to start the trip, already up $2,500. Alright, now it's time to jump into the real action on the table. We go to our favorite spot in Texas, Poker House Dallas. They run a 1-2 game with a $500 max buy-in, so that's how much we're in for. The first hand we get involved in is Queen Jack offsuit on the button. There's 2 limps over to me, and I decide to punish those limpers and make it $15 to go, to which we only get called by the small blind, so we're heads up to a flop, which comes 7-7-6 rainbow, and when he checks it over to me, I decide to take a stab for a half pot size bet of $15. Even though this isn't a good board for our range, it doesn't really hit the small blind very well either. We can credibly rep all the overpairs, and the small blind will have tons of king and ace high hands that will just fold on this flop. But the small blind does decide to see a turn card. He puts in the call for $15. Now the turn comes the 10 of diamonds. Not the best card because 9-8 now makes a straight, and hands like 10-9 or 10-8 improve to top pair. But when he checks it over to me, I just have queen high. So I decide to apply more pressure and bet out for $35, and he doesn't take too long before putting in the call. Now I have to assume that my opponent has at least one pair, and not sure if I'm going to fire a third barrel on the river or not. Depends on what it comes. But it comes to queen of clubs, so we almost always make the best hand here. If my opponent had trips or better, he would have definitely raised us either on the flop or the turn. And now he decides to lead into me for $45. I'm not really too sure what this line means, but I have top pair, and I'm not going to go anywhere. I put in the call, and my opponent says ace high. We turn over our river top pair and scoop a nice pot to start the session. So I guess our opponent decided to get sticky with ace high. I assumed that those hands would fold on the flop or the turn, so I guess our opponent made a good call on the flop and turn, but we just got lucky on the river. In this next hand, we are in early position with pocket jacks. The $5 button straddle is on, so I make it $20 to go. We get 3 callers, so we're 4 ways here to a flop, which is pretty good because we flop an overpair, 8-6-4 with 2 diamonds. When the action gets over to me, I decide to bet out for $30. Looking back, I definitely should bet bigger with this hand on this board. There's a lot we need to protect from. Overcards, straight draws, flush draws, so I bet out for $30, wishing I would have gone a little bit bigger, maybe $40 to $50, but only the hijack puts in the call, so that's good. We're heads up here to the turn, which comes the king of clubs. Obviously, we don't love the card because it's a card over our pair, but I don't think the opponent's going to have a lot of king high floats on the flop unless it was a hand like king x of diamonds. Regardless, I don't know what hands we're going to get 3 streets off of, so I decided to start with a check, to which my opponent snap jams all in for $150. It's about the size of the pot, and I'm in the tank here. There's plenty of draws my opponent could be doing this with. Sure, he could have hit the king on the turn, but in my eyes, it's very unlikely, so I'm not really sure what to do until the opponent shows me his cards. King jack of diamonds. He flipped over his cards, maybe thinking that I put in the call or something, or folded. I didn't do anything. I look at the dealer, everybody's kind of confused, but I'm not going to call here just to hit one out on the river, so I fold my cards. Kind of a weird situation there, but thanks to my opponent, we have an easy decision. In the moment, I was honestly leaning towards a call, especially without the jack of diamonds. It gives my opponent more combos of flush draws to jam, but yeah, thanks to him, we probably saved about $150, so that's pretty nice. Moving on to the next one, we have ace queen of spades under the gun. The $5 button straddle is going to be on for most of these hands, and of course, it's on in this one. I make it $20 to go, and I guess people just don't like folding here. We get 4 callers, so 5 ways to a flop this time, which is 5-4 deuce with 2 diamonds and 1 spade. We have 2 overcards, a gut shot to the wheel, and a backdoor flush draw. Now the big blind first to act decides to bet out for $25. It's only 25% of the pot. I think our hand really likes a float here. Any spade, any ace, any queen, any 3 would improve our hand, so I put in the call, and 2 other players put in the call, so there's $200 in the pot. And the turn is one of those cards. It's the deuce of spades. It does pair the board, so it's a little bit scary, but we do improve to the nut flush draw. And the action checks over to middle position, who jams for $140. Not really what we wanted to see. But when the action folds to me, we have to do a little bit of math here. I'm not sure what this card changes on the board. I'm not sure why middle position would want to jam on this card and not raise the flop, so I don't know, maybe he has a pair like 6s, 7s, 8s, maybe he has a 5. But if we could assume that all of our outs are live, I think we're getting the right price to call here. Any ace, queen, spade, or 3 would most likely give us the best hand. We have 16 outs, which would basically give us about 33% equity. And who knows, maybe he could shove a worse draw, a worse diamond draw, something like ace-6 of diamonds. On the small chance that we could actually be ahead here, I think we have to make this call. After a couple calculations, I decide to stick in the call. Let's see if we can hit the river. The river is the 10 of clubs. We absolutely brick, and our opponent shows us pocket queen, so that's going to win. But an interesting line from our opponent. Almost all of our outs were live, like we said. Just a couple of the queens were dead. So I don't mind my call here on the river. We're going to top off a couple hundred more and move on to the next hand. Quick interruption. If you're looking for a place to play poker, come play with me on Club GG. There's 24/7 cash games and tournaments, all different stakes for all different kinds of players. All you got to do is send a message on Telegram. All the information is going to be in the description below, so make sure you check that out. Let's get back into the video. We keep getting all of our big hands either under the gun or under the gun +1. It's so frustrating because you raise it to $20 and you get 5 calls. But anyway, we have ace king of clubs under the gun here. The button straddle's on, I make it $20, and we get 4 callers, a little deja vu from last time. So 5 ways here to a flop with 100 in the pot. It's a pretty similar board actually. 5, 6, 5, 2 spades, 1 club. And the action checks over to me. I could have the best hand, but I'm not going to bet into 4 other players. I decide to check it, and my left bet's out for $20. When the small blind puts in the call, again, it's a really small bet. I decide to float on the flop here and see what the turn brings in, which again is some deja vu. It's the deuce of clubs. A deuce on the turn that gives us a flush draw. And fortunately this time the action checks around, so we're going to get to see a free river card. Come on, dealer, put a club out there. It's not. It's the deuce of diamonds, so we just have ace high. Not going to be doing anything fancy here. The small blind bets out for $50. I have a no-brainer fold here, but my left puts in the call, so we get to see what they have. And the small blind shows pocket 6s for a flopped full house. Thank God we didn't hit a club on the river. He's going to scoop that pot. Nice hand. The session hasn't gone too great so far. We're still down a couple hundred, but hopefully the ladies under the gun can change that. I make it $20 over a button straddle, and we get 3 callers. You guys will start to recognize this pattern as the video goes on. 4 ways to a flop, which we do flop an overpair. 10, 8, 3, rainbow. It's such a dry board. There's a couple straight draws out there, but when the action checks to me, I decide to get a little bit sneaky on this board and check it over to my opponent on the button, who bets out for $20. And when the small blind puts in the call, I'm not sure if I should slow play here or go for the raise. I think pocket queens needs a little bit more protection. If I had a hand like aces or kings, I may be able to slow play a little bit more often. So I decide to raise it up to $65. And the action's on the button, and he does not look comfortable. He decides to tank fold, and the small blind folds as well. So unfortunately, we couldn't get any more value on that flop. And the button would later tell me that he folded pocket jacks. He said that he thought I had a bigger pair, so I guess it was a good read. But how do you not re-raise pocket jacks pre, or how do you not call the flop? That's pretty frustrating not to get some more value on that flop. I'm not 100% sure if I believe him or not, but I guess good fold. Moving on to the next hand, pocket 4s here on the button. Under the gun makes it $10 to go, and there's 2 callers over to me, getting a good price to flop a set here. I decide to stick in the call, and the small blind comes along as well, so we're 5 ways to a flop, which is horrible. Ace, king, 8, rainbow. Just going to fold to any bet, but when the action checks over to me, the under the gun has the strongest range here, and I don't think he's going to have too many big hands that connect to this board that are going to want to check into 4 people. So when the action checks over to me, I don't know, nobody really seems interested in the pot, so I decide to bet out for $20. And we do get called by the under the gun and the cutoff. Having position on this hand is going to be very nice if I need to fire a second or a third barrel. The turn now comes the 9 of spades. Doesn't really change anything about the board. Puts a flush draw out there, but the action checks over to me once again. No way our hand is good here. I think a big bet here could get a king, a weak ace, some weird draws out of there. So I decide to bet $80 into 112. And when the original raiser under the gun folds, that's definitely what we wanted to see. The action's back over to the cutoff. He doesn't look very comfortable either. So we think we're going to get this one through until the cutoff makes a last minute decision and jams for $120. We get caught with our hand in the cookie jar and we have to fold. The cutoff would later tell us that he almost folded. He said he had a very weak ace, but he decided to just go with it. So I guess nice move by the cutoff. Our bluff doesn't get through, but hopefully we can get it back in this next hand. We look down at the Cowboys in Texas, pocket kings here, and we're finally not under the gun with one of our big hands. We're in the hijack, and there's an early position raise to $7 and 1 caller in between. I 3-bet to $30, and the middle position player who just called the 7 puts in the call. So now we're heads up to the flop, which comes 7, 6, 3, rainbow. Flopping an overpair is very great. When middle position checks, he only has about $60 left in his stack. Trying to think of how we can get all of it, and I think checking back on the flop is the best way to go about it. He's going to miss this board so often, so I think we need to let him catch up a little bit. I decided to check this one back and get money in on the turn and river. When the turn comes to 4 of hearts, it puts a one-liner out there. My opponent has a 5, he has a 5, but I still think we're going to have the best hand here so often, so when he checks it over to me, I got to start putting money in the middle. I bet really small for $25, and he decides to fold. Unfortunately, we couldn't get any more value, but we're still picking up a nice little pot. We may not be scooping many big pots, but we sure are getting lots of premium hands. Pocket queens, once again, under the gun. $5 button straddle is on, I make it $20, and we get 3 callers. It's just like a routine at this point. So we're 4 ways to the flop, which is Jack 6-4 Rainbow. A great board for us, very dry, not too many draws. We have an overpair. And when the action checks to me, I'm going to bet out half pot for $40, and my left makes a call. The action gets back around to the small blind, who says, let's go all in. He jams for $101, and now the action's to me. Do I want to repop it and put the other player all in for his remaining around $200, or should I just call and set the trap? And I think setting the trap is a lot better because there's no draws on this board. There's nothing for us to be scared of. We want him to continue with his Jack X hands, so I put in the call, and the player on my left does as well. So now with the small blind all in, we're heads up to the turn, which is the 10 of spades. It's a great card because if my opponent had a jack, it's still top pair, so hopefully we can get the rest of his chips. I go all in for his remaining $175. He pretty quickly finds a fold, so he must have been floating pretty light on the flop. The river comes the 3 of diamonds. We show pocket queens, and our opponent shows 7-5 of diamonds for the rivered straight. He jammed with an open-ender and got there on the river. We can't seem to scoop any of these big ones, but we'll get there eventually. Nice hand to the small blind. But that's just how it goes in Texas, man, and we got to shake it off and move on to the next hand. At this point, we are down about $500 on the session right now, but in this next one, we look down at King 10 of spades, and I raise it up to $15 over one limp. And we get the big blind and limper to put in the call. So we're 3 ways to a flop, which is ace, queen, 9, 1 spade. We have a gut shot to Broadway. So when the action checks to me, we're going to have a lot of this board a lot of the time, being the original raiser. I bet out for $15, and that thins half the field when the big blind puts in the call and the other player folds. I'm looking to apply a lot of pressure on this board texture, but when the turn comes to 10 of hearts, it gives us showdown value. So when he checks it over to me, I feel like this is one of the only cards that we're going to check back on this board. When we pick up a pair, we want to see a free river card. Maybe we can improve to a straight or 2 pair. So I check it back, and the river is the 7 of diamonds. Shouldn't change anything about the board. Now he decides to lead into me for under half pot, $30. And this line is really, really strange because he called from the big blind. Sure, he can have an ace, he can have a queen, but this is just such a weak bet on the river. I think if he actually had a hand, he would try and bet a little bit bigger. And you know me, I like to hero call, but in a spot like this, I feel like we're just going to lose to a weak queen or a weak ace so often. We have the absolute range advantage here. I want to put his 1 pair hands to the test. I decided to bump it up and make it $105, putting max pressure. It's going to be difficult for him to call with a weak ace, just a pair of queens. We also block some 2 pair hands, also the nuts being king jack. So when I raise here, he tanks for about 20 seconds, and he eventually finds a fold, which is amazing. But like I said, who knows, we could have had the best hand. But I'm glad I decided to go for the raise there on the river rather than just put in the call. We scoop a nice little pot, getting some momentum going. That is what we like to see. Moving on to a familiar sight, pocket queens again. The $5 button straddle is on, and there's 2 limpers. I make it $30 to go, to which we get 3 calls. So the pot is juiced to $120 4 ways to the flop, which is 997 with 2 clubs. The middle position now bets out for $15, which is a tenth the size of the pot. A very weird, weak donk bet. I'm not sure what to think of this. The player on my right puts in the call, and now I think I definitely have to go for a raise here. When we don't have the queen of clubs, it means that we need a little bit more protection. Also, it gives our opponents more combos of flush draws that we could get value from, so I raise it up to $50. Unfortunately, everybody folds, so I'm not sure what they would be leading out for $15 with. Maybe just some weird gut shot that they don't want to call 50. I still like my raise, and we're going to scoop this pot, keeping that momentum going. And I swear that this video is not on loop. The next hand we get into, pocket queens once again. This time, we're on the button. What a dream. The hand starts off with the under the gun player raising to $15, and there's 3 callers over to me. Absolutely going to be 3 betting here. But what size should I go to? I decided to go with $80. Honestly, I could have gone a little bit bigger, but I still like my size of 80. And let me tell you, Texas does not disappoint because every player puts in the call. That's right, 4 callers. This is insane. We're 5 ways to a flop with $400 in the pot. Please, dealer, give me a good flop. I need to win a big one. The flop is queen, deuce, 4 with 2 diamonds. Oh my god. We flop top set in a massive pot, and the action checks over to me like I would expect it to. Definitely going to be betting. I go a little under a third here for $125. Still have to protect from some flush draws and get value from maybe some lower pairs. The action folds to the middle position player, who decides to jam all in $425. What a dream spot. We have the best hand possible on this flop. The action folds back around to me. Snap call incoming. I put it in and show her that I have top set. And the run out comes the 8 of hearts. And I guess we just need to fade a diamond, and the river is a diamond. But it's the 8 of diamonds. It pairs the board, giving us a full house. And my opponent almost flipped over her card. She looked excited like she hit the diamond, but then realized that it gave me a full house. So the dealer just teased her a little bit on the river. And we're going to scoop a $1,250 pot, finally getting paid with one of my premium hands. We flop huge in a massive 3-bet pot. Our stack is up to $1,400. Let's go. We're up about $500 on the session. Let's keep the ball rolling. And keep the ball rolling, we absolutely do. The very next orbit, we're on the button again, and the lady to my left tells me to put the button straddle on because I haven't straddled all game. Since she was the person I stacked in the last hand, I said, all right, whatever, I'll put on the straddle. We look down at a premium on the button here, Ace-King offsuit. And if you guys don't know how the button straddle works, they get ultimate last action. So the action starts on the under the gun, it goes all the way around and skips the button to the blinds, and then the button gets last action no matter what. It could be 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet, and I would still get last action. The under the gun makes it $20 to go, and there's 2 callers over to me. I get last action. Definitely going to be 3-betting. I make it $105. Action gets back over to the original Razor under the gun, and he decides to jam all in, $509. When the action gets back over to me, I am not going to be folding here. I didn't come to Texas to fold Ace-King pre-flop. So I put in the call, and we're playing a $1,058 pot, all in pre-flop. I ask him if he wants to run it twice, and he says, sure. Let's do it. To my surprise, my opponent chose Ace-6 of hearts, so he went for the big old 4-bet bluff. But we're going to run this board twice, and the first board comes a 6, 9-6-3 rainbow. That is so sick. The turn, deuce of hearts, river, ace of spades. So we're going to lose that first board, so now we actually have kind of a sweat. Are we really going to get sucked out on twice to lose this over $1,000 pot? The board comes 7, deuce, 3, turns a jack. We just need to fade a 6, and we do. It's the 8 of diamonds. We're going to chop up this pot, but thank God we ran it twice, because that would have been brutal. My opponent in this hand is actually another poker vlogger. Shout out to Mr. I-20 Poker. Go give him a subscribe, guys. He's a really cool guy. And he just tried to pull a gangster 4-bet bluff with Ace-6 suited on me. But we're going to chop up that pot. Nice hand. All right, I got 2 more hands for this video. On the button once again with King-Jack of spades under the gun makes it 20. There's 2 callers. I could consider 3-betting sometimes, but having position on the entire hand with King-Jack suited is a very playable hand. I decide to stick in the call. We're 4 ways to a flop, which is king high, pretty good for us. King-9 deuce, rainbow. Pretty surprised when the action checks over to me. I would assume we have the best hand, unless the under the gun was slow playing a hand like kings, aces, maybe ace-king. I decided to bet out a half pot for $45, and only the original Razor in the under the gun puts in the call. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, and when he checks it over to me, this is going to be a card I'm going to check back on a lot. I don't think I would bet the flop with a 9, so I don't have too many 9s in my range. Neither does he opening under the gun, but I'm not sure what other hands I can get 3 streets of value on, so it seems like a good turn to just check back for some pot control and then go for more value on the river. So that's what I do. I check it back, and the river is an inconsequential 6 of hearts. He checks it over to me once again, and now we're targeting maybe a hand like pocket jacks, pocket queens, pocket tens, or maybe he wants to hero call us with ace high. We have to bet for value here. I go on the smaller side, I make it $75, and he snap folds. So he must have just had some weird gut shot or ace high float on the flop. Regardless, we're going to scoop a $170 pot, and we're moving on to the last hand of the night, and let me tell you, this one's a doozy. The last 3 hands we've been on the button, and this last one doesn't change at all. I actually decide to straddle on this one once again, and I have Jack-10 offsuit. The middle position player makes it $25 to go, and there's 2 callers over to me. I'm closing the action on the button with Jack-10 offsuit. A very playable hand post-flop, so I stick in the call, getting a good price. The flop is ace-9 queen with 2 spades. We flop ourselves an open-ended straight draw. There is a flush draw on board, so we can't assume that all of our outs are going to be clean. Still a pretty decent flop for us. A little surprised when the middle position doesn't decide to c-bet and the action checks over to me. I think this is a great spot to see a free turn card, especially with the flush draw on board. I don't need to bluff at this, so I check it back, and we see a magical turn card. The king of clubs. We drill the nuts on the turn. And even better, middle position leads for $25, pretty small bet. But then the player on his left says, that's not enough, I'm going to make it $75. So the hijack makes it $75, and the player on my right in the cutoff tank calls. So now the action's over to me. We're sitting here with the cojones, the nuts. I don't know what to do. I don't think I can just call. There's 2 flush draws on board. We're going to have to make our opponents pay to see the river. So I raise it up to $255. Usually when it goes bet, raise, re-raise, it's a very strong hand, but I don't think I really have any other choice. The middle position player folds, and the hijack goes all in for less. It's about $250. The player on my right folds. We let him know that we turned the nut straight, and he says, do you want to run it twice? I'm always down. I say yes. The first board comes the 7 of spades. The second board comes the deuce of hearts. Our opponent shows king, queen for 2 pair, and we're going to scoop a $700 pot to end the night. Let's go. What a dream turn card. Gives our opponent 2 pair. Gives me the straight. I couldn't have asked for anything more. The opponent on my right said he turned a flush draw, so definitely needed to make him pay for that. The river 7 of spades definitely would have been a little bit scary, but regardless, we're going to scoop a nice pot to end the session. That was a pretty crazy first few days in Dallas. Final tabling those 2 tournaments to win over $2,500 in the first day, and then crushing the next cash game session. Pretty wild. I was into that game for $900 and I was out for $1,635, so a profit of $735. Pretty nice. We made a little comeback there. We were stuck for most of the session. Then we had some big hands there towards the end. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be uploading a lot of videos. Like I said, I'm here for 3 weeks. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.